literary slummers, to another special Slummer Reading Project episode of HateRead. I'm one of your Animorphs, Anna.
And I'm another one of your Animorphs, M. Our typical modus operandi here on HateRead is that we challenge each other to read books that we think we'll hate, but we've taken a brief break, a brief respite from that over the summer, where we are exploring a book series that I had never read, which is the Animorphs series by K.A. Applegate, and Anna hadn't read in a long time.
Yeah, like 20 plus years.
Yeah, so we are currently on the 8th book.
7.5.
7.5, the 8th one that we've read, but it is part of the Megamorphs series, which is numbered differently from the Animorphs. So it's Megamorphs number 1, the Andalite's Gift.
Yes. This one was a little bit different from the rest of the Animorphs books because we
What'd you think?
Multiple POVs. I did not care for multiple POVs.
I loved the multiple POVs.
I think the reason I didn't care for it was because, and I hate to criticize our goddess K.A. Applegate, but I think she went a little bit overboard on the recapping events each chapter.
Yes, that's
I was
true.
like, I already fucking read this. Give me something new to work with. Like, it took like 30% of the book for things to happen.
I think there was a lot of recap, both in terms of recapping the events that we had already seen in this book and also recapping prior events. But
yes,
I liked, and I think part of this goes to just the general, I like the length of this book. I think that it was nice to have more time to flesh some stuff out. And I like the POV switches because I think that it led to some interesting, like, people knowing things and not knowing things and different characters. Like, that was all fun. I really like that.
This definitely couldn't have worked from a single point of view.
Yes. The thing I didn't like about this book was that I felt like it was a filler, right? Like, it was not necessary to the overall plot of Animorphs. Like, I feel like pretty much every book so far has built on each other. Mm-hmm. I felt like this one was very much like, I mean, literally, you can remove it from the series, and it's not.
Yes.
And I mean, maybe I'm wrong, and we'll see, like, the repercussions of this book really, affect stuff in book number 13 or something. Mm-hmm. But it did feel like this was the episode that they were like, well, we, like, it's like in a Monster of the Week show where there's, like, the big bad, but then, like, 20, of the 22 episodes for a season, like, episode 18 is like, oh, and then we had to deal with this totally other monster that didn't have anything to do with the big bad, but, like, we needed to fill out the episodes. Like, that was kind of, I didn't feel like this connected to the series as a whole. It was a good book by its own, but I didn't feel like it added anything to except for it did kind of explain some thought speech stuff. Which was nice, but otherwise it didn't.
A little bit more interaction with Visser 3.
Yeah.
I think this is kind of like, and we had talked about in the last episode, kind of a little bit of a turning point for the morphs in general, where they've kind of been beaten down and depressed, and they felt like they've been losing every single battle that they've been in. But then at this one, there's a little bit of a restoration of hope. Now, whether or not that is deserved, I guess we can talk about when we get there, because to me, I'm like, you killed one thing. Good job. There's still yerks. But
you killed one thing that hadn't been a problem up until this book.
Yeah, and I thought the Kandrona thing was much more important and successful than this was, but that's not the way that the Animorphs saw it. So I'm kind of hoping that after this book and we get into the next book, which is an Axe POV, it'll be a little bit, not like upbeat, but energized, I guess.
Yeah. But
we'll see.
No, you know what this book was?
What?
It was the beach episode.
Yes.
It was.
Yes, if this were an anime, this would be the Summer Beach episode.
Yes.
And somehow they all got stuck, like, having to make food instead of going to the beach and enjoying the beach. They had to, like, do some menial task, but there was still a lot of flirting and romance.
And then they get back to the main thing, and they feel, more, like you said, more energized.
So I guess we can get started on this book.
Yeah,
so
let's
we
do
can
it.
Shit on the parts we didn't like and speculate on other things.
Mm-hmm.
So like I said, this is multiple POVs, and I didn't realize it at first, and so the book opens and it's like from Jake's POV, and I was like, fuck, we just got done with him. But no. he was only there for a couple pages. It was fine.
Really, the cover with the 4 Animorphs and then Tobias as a hawk didn't, like, tip you off that it was going to be multiple POVs?
You know, I thought maybe it was going to be like a Power Ranger situation and they all joined forces and became one big monster. I don't know. So Rachel is supposed to be going to a gymnastics camp, like a sleepaway camp, but is afraid to leave her very good friends behind to fight without her. And the other morphs eventually convince her to go, but before Rachel leaves, she decides to morph one last time. And she becomes a bald eagle, and she's on her way to go see Axe in the forest when she's mobbed by a bunch of smaller birds who make her crash into a tree, where she hits her head, is knocked unconscious, and loses her memory.
Now, I want to point out that she goes to morph one last time to go visit Tobias, right?
Yeah, maybe. I couldn't remember.
I think she does, yeah. Because
she was going to go say goodbye to her
She's going to go say, because, which I want to point out specifically because it is very cute, but also because she says she has to, I wanted to check in with Tobias before I left. It's no big thing. It's just that I kind of take care of stuff Tobias needs.
Oh, that's right.
That's very sweet. But then the next sentence is, I bring him books sometimes.
What is he doing?
What's he doing with those? This is the new hot gun. Like, how does he read those?
I'm like imagining him very carefully trying to like pierce one page of the book with his talon, and then just like clawing the whole book,
like bitty biting it, like hooking his little hook beak on the corner and turning. But then also because of the way Hawk's eyes are, like he would have to like
turn his head
like, back and forth to read this book.
Or like put it very far away.
Yes.
And then just fly to it every time you need to turn the page. I think my headcanon is that he can't read the books and he doesn't enjoy trying to, but he really wants Rachel to continue to see him, so he pretends to.
So he's like, please, Rachel, bring me more Horse Pals book 2.
Yeah. I would love to read your Sweet Valley High books. Axe comes and reads them to him. Axe is like a Sweet Valley High stan.
Axe is like, I just love Elizabeth. She's my new prince.
So meanwhile, Marco is sad because he was not invited to Darlene's pool party, whoever Darlene is. Like Cassie and Jake were. Yeah, Darlene, rich girl Darlene. Because at a previous pool party, he dropped a baby Ruth in the pool and pretended it was poo-poo.
This is
Marco.
This is the thing that I realized about Marco in this book, because I was like, we used to be big anti-Marco people, and then we completely changed our mind in his POV. His first few POVs in this, I was like, oh, I'm back to hating Marco a little bit, because he's incredibly annoying right now. And he got a lot better towards the end. I think the thing about Marco is that I hate when he is trying to be funny, unless it is the result of a bad situation he's in. If it's like, I'm being funny to cope with this, love it. It's great. It comes off great every time. When it is this bullshit Marco trying to pull pranks and goofs, I'm like, you suck. No, stop. Yeah. Because this is, he's like
gross frat boy Marco versus like dark comedy Marco.
And he's so butthurt about not being invited to this girl's party. And I know he's 13. He whines about it for days. Yes, I know he's 13 and you're not expected to be that mature, but I'm just like, she doesn't want to be around you, Marco. Leave it alone. Leave it alone. You weren't invited. Like,
she doesn't like you, and that's okay. But he like twisted around in his head to be like, she must love me, and that's why she didn't invite me. And that like gave me a very creepy insight into some guys' minds.
Yeah.
So Marco comes up with a plan to infiltrate the party, and he ropes poor Axe and Tobias into this. Tobias the whole time is like, this is a very bad plan. You are very dumb. Don't do this, Axe. Don't let him drag you into this. And Axe is like, I want to help.
I think Tobias actually isn't part of the plan. He just kind of shows up when Marco and Axe are doing this, because later...
Well, he goes to get them first, Mouse.
Oh, you're right. That part. Yeah. I'm thinking about later once they go to the party, Tobias is like, well, I flew behind and was checking up on them because I knew that they were idiots and weren't aware of, like, hawks and stuff and were going to get eaten. So I, like, kind of ran interference for them, but they didn't know about that.
Tobias is a very good guy.
Tobias is just the best. He's such a sweetheart.
Our eye in the sky. I love him. So Axe and Marco turn into mice that Tobias happily provided them. He probably ate it afterwards, too.
Yum, yum, yum. Yucky,
like, can't let food go to waste.
Hungry. Very hungry, Tobias.
Want some nom-noms.
Mousy mouse. No, no, no.
They enter the party as mice, are seen, and they cause everyone to panic. And Axe and Marco scamper to the basement where they can both become human again. Well, Axe morphs into a human. Now, it's unclear at this point. Does Axe morph directly from mouse to human, or does he go Andalite to human?
No, he goes Andalite to human.
Okay. Because, like, as they tear, as in this next scene, as we find out the house gets destroyed, they're both humans. I was like, that's a really fast morph.
Yeah.
Axe, so maybe Cassie better watch out, because someone's going to come for her gold medal.
Coming for your neck.
Mm-hmm. But as they're morphing, a huge tornado-like dust cloud descends from the sky and destroys all of Darlene's house. And Marco's probably like, "That's what you get
for not enjoying the comedic stylings of Marco."
And I mean, to be fair, none of this would have happened to Darlene's house if she had invited Marco, because he wouldn't have had to morph in her basement.
Yeah, she really deserved what was coming to her.
Yep.
Now,
you're asking for it, Darlene.
They do make a point to mention that insurance is going to cover the repairs, so it's okay.
100%.
But, yeah, I don't know.
Man. Still, like, all of your possessions and everything have been destroyed.
Although this also, I kind of have trouble feeling bad for Darlene and her house being destroyed because, like, they mention at the pool party that there's 40 to 50 people at this party.
Oh my god, so many teenagers in one place.
How big is this fucking pool? Because, like, I had a
That's
pool.
That's not enough room for anyone to move.
No, I had a pool at my house in my teenage years, and I occasionally had people over, and I think the cap for it not being ridiculous was, like, 10. Like, you can't...
I was gonna say, it starts to get uncomfortable when there's, like, the 6 of us there. 5 of us, 6 of us
so
there.
This girl has, like, a YMCA-sized pool at her house, I think, is the thing. Like... So, I mean, she's honestly, she's probably fine. Her parents are clearly loaded. Yeah. She's fine.
That's true. She can just go buy an all-new wardrobe from the Limited.
Yeah. She'll probably love that.
This cloud descends, and it starts to move closer to Axe and Marco, but at the last minute, like, changes its mind and turns and zooms off towards the forest. And so the Animorphs minus Rachel all meet up, and they discover that Rachel never made it to the gymnastics camp in the aftermath of this tornado being that destroyed half of their town. And they grow very worried and decide to look for her.
Well, because they see her running through the woods on some footage from...
News footage.
Yeah.
Yes. They see this blonde girl in a leotard running around barefoot in the background of this car accident.
And they're like, oh, Rachel.
Who else could it be? Rachel's crashing cars now. She's bloodthirsty. What can you do?
We knew this day would come.
We have to rein her in. We have to take her down. Bring her in. Jake and Marco morph into wolves, and they tell Cassie to go look at the mall. They're like, you go to the mall, girl, because you know Rachel better than we would. So.
Yeah, and they also, Cassie earlier had this conversation with Jake where she was like, I'm having nightmares about, like, having to make a choice and, like, getting someone killed, essentially. So Cassie surmises from Jake sending her to the mall that, like, perhaps he sent her to the mall because he's worried that she's cracking up. Which, like, everyone's cracking up, Cassie, so, like, you're not special.
I mean, we already had a whole book that was Tobias's POV where he was trying to commit hawk suicide, right, so, like...
Which I guess he probably didn't tell everyone else about that, so maybe Cassie, you know... And that is a thing with these guys, right? They don't really tell other people about their crises of faith. Marco didn't tell anyone but Jake about his mom being Visser 1, so, like...
Very true.
They need to...
They got their secrets.
If they're not bothering with spying on people or practicing, they should at least dedicate some time to group therapy, right?
As Jake and Marco are morphing into wolves to go hunting in the forest, the dust cloud comes back and chases them through the woods, destroying everything in its path. And again, as it's about to catch them, it flies away in another direction very abruptly. And so that's their mission. Cassie's mission at the mall, she finds Chapman and she turns into a fly to spy on him because she's picked up on some of Jake's fetishes. And
it happens when you're in a relationship.
In a relationship, it's bound to happen. she discovers she's riding around on Chapman, who is having like this very open conversation with a subordinate about what this dust cloud is, and it's called Valik, which I guess is maybe a Yerk or Andalite word for pet.
It's Yerk, I think.
Yeah. Which again,
okay.
Do they have a spoken language?
Apparently they do.
And it was made to hunt for the Animorphs because it's attracted to the energy of their morphs. So normally it just like eats all energy, I think, but they somehow turned it into a being that is only attracted to morphing energy, but instead of eating the morphs, it just captures them and takes them back to the ship where Visser 3 feeds them a different kind of energy.
Yeah, which this was, and this happens twice in this book, but this is, and it's happened once before, the moments where I'm like least into the sci-fi-ness of this book, I guess, because like obviously this is very soft sci-fi in general. Like it's not the shit. We're not pretending that this could actually.
There's no description of any science.
Yes. Like there's no science, but we're saying aliens. Fiction. We're saying aliens, so it's sci-fi, not fantasy, I guess. Yes. And I can get on board with that. I'm fine with that when it's like the stuff with the Andalites and the stuff with the Yerks, because I'm like, yeah, sure, maybe like 1,000 galaxies away, there are these creatures, and they're way more advanced than us, and they got here, whatever. I can buy into that. My suspension of disbelief kind of starts to crack when they do this shit that's like stuff that is in our own universe.
Yes, it was on Saturn.
Because it's from Saturn. I'm like, it's not though, guys. Like, this, it's not. And this happens again, and it happened before with the whales, where they're like, oh, whales are telepathic, I guess. I'm
whales
like,
in space.
They aren't. The whales are not telepathic. We know this. Like, they just aren't. Like, you can't.
We're just not tuned into the right frequency, man. That's all.
Guess.
It's like a more sophisticated hand waving. You know, like where she tries to explain it, but in a way that's very unsatisfying.
Right. And I'm just like, why did you have to make it from Saturn? Make it from
it could have been from literally anywhere.
Something further away. And I guess technically we don't super know that there isn't a giant beast living on Saturn that... but we do. Like, that doesn't exist. It's not there. We know that. Come on.
Or, like, how about this? Visser 3, it took them a while. They ordered this on Space Amazon, this Animorph hunter, and it just took a while because it got lost on the way to deliver. So that's why it just took so long to get there to kill the
Or literally they found it on any other planet that isn't in our solar system.
Or they, like, bred it or something.
Yeah.
Like, I don't know, man. It's goofy.
Any of this other stuff, because it's so far removed, I'm like, yeah, I guess could be that
way.
I don't know.
Probably
maybe.
It is there.
But because you're like, oh, we found this creature on Saturn. I'm like, and the moon men from Mars are gonna come soon. I'm like, it's goofy. It's very 1950s sci-fi. Like, not a fan.
Yeah. So, meanwhile, Rachel has been wandering around the woods and stumbles upon an abandoned shed. And
did we mention she has amnesia?
Yes. Okay. So she has amnesia. Doesn't know her name, but so when she woke up, she was like half eagle, half girl, and she somehow like managed to get herself back into all girl. So she knows she has something weird going on with her, but that's all she knows.
But she also kind of doesn't know if it's weird or not, because she's like, maybe people just do this.
Yeah, she's like, I know I'm human, but that's all I know. I'm also something else. And maybe everyone else is too. She meets a woman in the shed, and this woman's kind of like, she's not entirely present, as Rachel discovers. She kind of thinks she is, like, she thinks she's like a retail worker.
Yeah, she's definitely one of those employees from the Gap, right? Where the entrance is to the... Be. Yeah, so she was yerked up and then somehow got out of it.
Yeah, so she's an ex-controller, which oh my god, Rachel, why did you have to lose your memories at this very important juncture?
Yes.
Like, I have so many questions for this woman. Is this something like, did Visser 1 save her?
Maybe.
But, so this woman has like this abandoned shed.
Of it, considering the situation she's currently in.
Yeah, she wasn't very kind. But, so, this woman has an abandoned shed, and she, after Rachel, like, kind of digs around, she has a bunch of piles of clothes around her and stuff that she's collecting, and Rachel digs around, and they're looking for some shoes and things to cover up with, and this woman kind of decides that Rachel must be a Yeerk who's come back to take her, and wants to control her again. And this woman starts to freak out and is saying, like, no, I won't be taken again, blah, 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 blah. So she opens up a trap door into the basement of this shed where there is, like a little pool, a Kandrona pool. Like, it seemed like there were Yeerks in the basement of this shed somehow. And I'm too lazy to go back and look at the exact wording.
I don't think that there were Yeerks in the basement. I think that she was just having flashbacks, because this is when her memory starts coming back. It's like flash, and she sees stuff. So I think she's having flashbacks to the Kandrona pool the first time. So it's not happening. I very much
misread that.
Yeah. So there aren't Yeerks in the basement.
There are no Yeerks in the basement. That was a part of mine and Rachel's imagination, our shared hallucination.
But she's starting to recover her memories at this point, but in like bits and pieces.
She's starting to recover her memories, and the woman locks Rachel up in this shed and then fucking sets it on fire. Mm-hmm. She like went hard. She was definitely not going to be controlled again, which I don't blame her. I would have probably done this too.
Hardcore, agree.
You have to be ruthless in this world.
It's Yeerk or be Yeerked.
Yeah, so now I have like so many questions about her. Like, are there more of her? Like, more people? Is there a whole, like, sub-community of people who are ex-controllers and live out in these woods?
Well, and this also gets to the point that the Animorphs are not good at their jobs, because Tobias is aware of this woman. Like, Tobias is like, oh, there's a crazy lady that lives out in the woods.
Yes.
So, like, I don't know. Look into that, man.
Yeah, like, find out what her deal is. You got nothing else to do while these kids are at school.
Yeah, you're just talking around.
And Axe, too.
Yeah.
Axe, you also live in these woods. What are you two doing? They're just reading books. They're reading their Sweet Valley High books all day long.
They gotta see what happens next.
Rachel, like, just decides that she needs to have as much power as she possibly can in that moment, and she subconsciously morphs into a grizzly bear to get herself out of the shed. And then the Valik appears. And Rachel is fighting the Valik, and she loses 2 paws. So, like, last book it was 1 paw, and in this one she loses 2 of them.
Which... Okay, I wanted to bring this up earlier, but I kind of forgot. So she loses the paws because, and we all know, it's well established at this point, when you morph into an animal, if you get injured as that animal, once you morph back into human, that injury no longer exists because it all matters to DNA and whatever.
Yeah.
So she has amnesia because she hit her head getting an injury.
Oh, good question.
Why didn't that get fixed? Like, it was an injury-based thing. Why didn't that get fixed when she turned back into a human?
A very good question.
There's
Maybe
no
because
answer.
It wasn't a physical injury, it was all in her mind.
Your brain is a physical thing.
Yeah,
it's
but
not
like...
It's not like she was repressing something. She got whacked. She ran into a tree and got a concussion, got whacked in the head. Her brain got boo-boo. Her brain got a boo-boo. And I guess you could, like, make the argument that, like, oh, the brain is the only thing that stays the same in the morph, but we know it doesn't because you get the animal brain when you morph. And, like, also, if that was true, you wouldn't be able to be an ant because your brain wouldn't fit in there.
Yeah, I don't know. So then, like, I guess it's just like the soul of Rachel that goes from animal to animal, huh?
But your soul doesn't have amnesia. That's not how that works. It was from blunt force trauma.
So yeah, we found another loophole. K.A. Applegate.
K.A.
You're letting us down with this Megamorph book. You really phoned it in, didn't you? So Rachel loses these 2 paws, which then, like, she goes on to describe a little bit later how she has to, like, walk on 2 legs because she only has 2 paws left, which is, like, both very sad and very funny to me.
Yes, okay. Especially because, like, the way the paws getting destroyed kind of is, so, like, she, like, tries to punch the thing, right? And then it, like, I'm picturing it kind of like a pencil sharpener sort of situation.
Yeah, yes.
And it, like, eats away at her hand. Her paw. So then, like, just the picture of that wandering through the woods. Like, very funny. Gruesome, but very funny.
Axe shows up and joins the fight. He's just, I guess, wandering around. No, he's going to meet up with the other boys because Cassie's still at the mall.
No, isn't it that he saw the thing fly off or whatever and to go to Rachel from the guys, and so he's, like, following it?
I think, well, he's, like, supposed to meet up with them because they're like, oh, both, like, Axe didn't meet up with us, so he might also be missing now, too, with Rachel or something. But yeah, so I think he saw the cloud and diverted his attention, but was supposed to be meeting up with the gang. But he shows up and he joins in the fight, and he begins to morph, but unluckily for him, the Valik is attracted to morphing, and he captures Axe and takes him back to Visser 3.
But Axe realizes at this point, because he sees it wrapping Rachel up, so he's like, oh, it's not trying to kill us, it's trying to capture us, so I don't have to be too like, he's like a little less, like, he's like, well, I'm gonna pull it off, right? Like, he's okay with the result, I think. Go. He's like, well, I'm not gonna die yet, so that's good.
If it's my time, it's my time.
Yes.
So Rachel's kind of freaking the fuck out because, you know, memory's not all there yet, and she has nowhere to go or anyone to trust. So she goes back to a neighborhood and breaks into an empty house and thinks that she can rest there for a little while, but then the police show up because some neighbors saw her breaking into a house, and she thinks the best course of action is to just turn into an elephant to escape.
All right.
And she just barrels through the house. What are you doing, Rachel?
I mean, she has amnesia, but also...
like, she has to remember what police officers are, right? And she's, like, a 13-year-old girl who's lost and confused. Like, she could have pulled that off, and they would have, like...
Yeah,
at least
the thing is,
given her shoes and a blanket.
If she was Rachel, like, if she was fully in her, like... If she's fully cognizant, I actually think it would make more sense that she elephants out, because the thought process would be like, oh, it's the police.
Who are probably Yeerks.
Who might be Yeerks. But she, as Amnesia Rachel, does not have that information that the police have been infiltrated by the Yeerks. So she doesn't really have any reason to be afraid of these people.
Yeah.
And she's just like, fuck it, I'll just be an elephant.
Or why didn't she turn into a cat?
Or a bug.
Or a bug.
This would be a time.
Jake. She's not Jake. That's his thing, not hers.
This would be a time, and that would be okay.
Yeah, she could have become that housefly.
Yeah.
Whatever. Across town, Cassie, Marco, and Jake notice the Valik taking off again. It's so hard to imagine in my mind. Like, is this giant dust cloud just, like, zipping around town, like, left and right all day long, and no one cares except for these 5 kids? They're just like, wow, this is the longest lasting tornado in the history of tornadoes.
So I think that it only looks like a tornado when it's, like, metastasizing, right? That's not the right word, but whatever.
It's becoming cancer.
It's becoming cancer. When it is appearing, like, materializing. Well, I mean, it's always like the way I'm picturing this, and this is a book that it's been a very long time since I read, but when I was a teen, my mom was trying to get me into Michael Crichton, and I read Prey, which is about like a nanobot swarm, and because they're little tiny nanobots, you can't see them until they are on the attack, right? Because it's like, they're just spread out in the atmosphere. So, like, at most, I think probably it looks like kind of like a haziness. Like,
okay, I hope so.
Because I think they can see it because they follow, like, they're like, oh, I see it going. But I think if you didn't know what to look for, you probably wouldn't notice it. Okay. Because they're all, like, it's very spread out. Because we find this out later that it is essentially a bunch of tiny little or not even microorganisms, but like flea-sized organisms. Yes. So if you picture that spread out, but then if it comes together, you can see it.
Yes, I'm glad that explains it a little bit better, because
I don't think it was just a tornado zipping over.
How are the Yeerks gonna write this off? No. Like, I don't understand.
But they do reference, because the people that Chapman are talking to are like, I think a reporter.
What's the spin we're gonna put on this?
Yeah. So they're like, oh, we can't keep explaining this tornado showing up, but I don't think that people see the tornado running around. I think it's only when it is attacking that you can really see it.
That makes more sense.
Unless you know what to look for.
Across town then, Cassie, Marco, and Jake notice this thing, and they realize it must be after Rachel or Axe, because they're the only ones that are missing. So they borrow Cassie's dad's pickup truck and drive off after it. which, okay. Even if you are 13 and have never driven a car before, I still don't think you would be this bad at it.
I don't know. First off, I'm willing to give it a pass because I found this scene very funny when Jake is yelling at Marco, like, what, do you just hate trash cans because he keeps running into trash cans?
You hit a trash can, and then dunk, 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 dunk. 4 more trash cans.
So, like, I was kind of willing to give it a pass. I think also, I don't know. I'm trying to remember back to my early driving days. Yeah, I can see someone being this bad. I'll just leave it at
that. Spoiler alert, it was M. They attempt to play a game of keep away by morphing at different times to get the Vleek's attention and then, like, driving away. But they aren't very successful, and then eventually, after this little merry chase, they crash the truck into Elephant Rachel, and somehow this restores her memory.
Because, you know,
everyone hit her in the head. Her head is too high off the ground. Well, I don't understand.
They might have if she was like, I just leaned my head forward and thunked it into the microphone, and I realized this is a visual medium, or this is not a visual medium, so that didn't help anybody at all. But yeah, if her head was like down, charging the ground, yeah, maybe. But I Rachel gets her memories back. It's very cartoonish in general. The whole the way to fix amnesia is to conk him in the head again. Like, okay, sure, whatever.
Then so the Vleek tries to capture Rachel, but she is too big because she is an elephant and it cannot lift her. So it captures Gorilla Marco instead and whisks him up to Visser 3.
Yeah. And there's also a little bit of, like, Cassie could have saved Marco by morphing and distracting the Vleek, but she doesn't, so Marco gets captured.
I just, like, cut out all of Cassie's subplot because it just, whatever.
Well, it builds to her dramatic plan at the end, so.
Meanwhile, Axe is on the ship watching all of this go down with Visser 3 taunting him and shit. And luckily, Axe has been very itchy lately because he has fleas. So he starts itching and scratching in his little cage that Visser 3 put him in, and he gets a flea, and he's like, oh, I should morph into this because it is very small.
Now, to be fair, this was set up very early in the book as a Chekhov's gun.
Yes.
So Chekhov's flea. So it wasn't out of nowhere.
Yes, but it was foreshadowed and was not, like, expecting that to be the thing that saved the gang, but here we are.
And he's also like, I know Prince Jake once turned into a flea. It can be done.
Yes, he does say that. He's always thinking of his Jakey poo.
Just wants to know what Jake's up to.
He was like, I wonder why Prince Jake is so into this bug thing. I'm gonna try it out.
The flea thing happened before Axe was on the team. So, like, he's
so Jake is out here bragging about being a flea.
No, I'm thinking he's asking the other Animorphs for stories about Prince Jake.
That's
Please,
so cute.
Tell me a tale of Prince Jake's greatness, Tobias. And Tobias is like, fuck, man, let's just read Sweet Valley instead. I can't.
Like... And Marco, like, sarcastically tells him the story about how Jake became
a mighty flea.
Impotent flea. He couldn't do shit. And Axe was just, like, reverently taking it in.
It's like, Jake is so wise. Prince Jake is so smart.
So they look in the cage and Axe isn't there. And so some idiot comes and opens it. So, like, it's like a cage that was, like, completely hermetically sealed. Like, nothing could go in and out. So some York idiot comes and opens the cage, and Visser 3 immediately kills him and closes the cage, but it's too late because Axe has jumped out and attached himself to Visser 3.
Which, to be fair, though...
That was a good plan.
It was a good plan. And also, I was going to say, Visser 3 kills the controller. For all we know, I don't know if this ever gets really discussed. Like,
oh, yeah, do the Yeerks live on?
Do you have to kill them twice if you're trying to punish somebody? Do you have to, like, kill their body and then smush them?
Or, like, kill them and then, like, put the head in a place where there are no Converna rays? Ooh.
Messed up. Also, would
and
the
how able are the Yeerks to leave brains?
Yeah, I think
like, we've just peace out whenever?
Discussed this before. It's not super clear how mobile they are. outside
because
of...
they basically, like, melt into the human brain.
Yeah.
Right? Or any brain, I guess. They, like, melt into it. I don't know.
And I mean, their base form is little sluggies, and slugs can move around very slowly. But I don't know if we've really got into the... And I mean, like, it definitely seems like they are mobile while underwater. But
that would be a good place for them.
I don't know if they are how able they are to move around.
I think they just have to have a host to do anything.
I think so. Seems like.
So maybe they do die then. Maybe that's just it for them.
Unless someone comes and saves them.
Yeah.
Within 3 days.
Just, like, syringes them out of there.
Well, I feel like if I was that Yerk's buddy, I'd be like, oh, Vista 3 just totally killed his body. I'll wait till Vista 3's out of the room, cut the body's head off, and go put it in the Kandrona pool. And then he'll just slither out, and it'll be fine.
Can they, like, tell Yerks apart?
I mean, they have...
Do they have defining physical
Yerk names.
Yeah, but could he just be like, oh, nah, man, that's, like, I'm just gonna pretend to be you, and we'll never be in the same room together.
Or just, like, I'm sure... I don't think Visser 3 is the type of leader to, like, know the names and personalities of all of his subordinates. I feel like once Visser 3 is out of the room, everyone's just going to be like, okay, go get Kyle's head off, go put it in the pool.
That's probably true.
He has to work the cafeteria for a while until Visser 3 calms down. Like,
probably true. So Gorilla Marco shows up on the ship, and Axe thought speeches to him to open up the hatch. He's got a plan. So Axe then does a partial morph while on Visser 3's back. So the Vleek goes and attacks Visser 3, which I thought was a very good plan.
Yeah.
And now I want Leader Axe instead of Leader Jake. Prince Axe.
Everybody so far has come up with good plans, except for Jake.
Yes,
so
except for one person.
One of these things is not like the other.
One of these things doesn't belong here. Marco, okay. Yeah, so he does the partial morph, and Vleek goes and attacks Visser 3, and then Marco opens the hatch, and he and Axe just jump out of the spaceship, because it's still in Earth's atmosphere, luckily. But they jump out of the spaceship, demorph, and then morph into birds and fly away home. Again, like, being very cavalier with the morphing, like, all Visser 3 had to do was look out the window, because he had solved the Vleek problem by then.
Yeah,
he poured water on it.
Because there's a lot of, like, fun stuff with when Visser 3 captures, Axe is, like, talking smack to him and whatever, and also Axe is all this, like, he's my brother's killer, I have to kill him, and then he feels really guilty about not doing that. But then when he captures Marco, they're all like, we know that we can't talk to Visser 3 because he might cotton on to the fact that we're humans, not Andalites. So he just, like, stands there and, like, doesn't say anything and doesn't respond to Visser 3. And it seems like Visser 3 is kind of catching on that, because he's like, why aren't you responding? The other one is responding to me, no problem. So I don't know. I feel like Vista 3 might be catching on to the fact that something's up.
Yes.
But yeah, he could have just looked out the window and then he would know.
He could have just been like, look, a human, now a bird. I wonder what that could have been all about. And then, like, someone else in the background could have been like, oh yeah, in the last book we also saw that there were 4 human teenagers, and one of them is named Jake. Ugh.
They're not good at this.
They're not. The next day, Cassie comes up with a great plan. Kind of. I mean, I'm saying that a little sarcastically.
Well,
it's very convoluted. They all swim out to sea as dolphins, and then Cassie goes and finds a whale and gets its DNA. And then she turns into a cockroach. And meanwhile, the others are all, like, doing partial morphs in the water to distract the Vleek, which has again showed up.
And doesn't like the water. So, like, they realize the Vleek because of Visser 3 spraying them with water to, like, control the Vleek. They're like, oh, we can morph while we're in the water and it's fine. So, like, Cassie had to morph into a human and then into a cockroach underwater so that she didn't get got. So that's fun.
Cassie then has Tobias carry her up a mile high into the air. where she demorphs and then morphs into a whale on the way down. And this is pretty significant because it's the first time any of them have done this many morphs in a row. And Cassie, like, almost can't pull it off because she's very exhausted. But she is the best morpher, so she does pull it off.
This also was another moment of them trying to act like Jake is a good leader, because it's, like, Rachel's perspective, and she's watching this happen. And she's like, oh, do you think we should keep trying to distract the Valik? And Jake's like, no, Cassie's got this. And Rachel's like, that's Jake. He's such a leader, always making the tough choices. I'm like, it's not a tough choice.
She said he would be a president or a general someday.
I'm like, no, he wouldn't, except maybe because the bar is very low, but whatever. That's not a tough choice. That's the plan that you guys already decided on. What are you talking about?
If you interfered at that point, it would have ruined everything.
Right. Stop. You guys all need to stop acting like Jake's anything.
We see through this. He's garbage. He's a garbage leader. The Valik tries to catch the whale on the way down, but again, it is a big, heavy humpback whale, and the Valik cannot carry it, so it is dragged into the water with the whale and then just disperses.
And I guess dies?
Yeah, I guess so. I don't know if all those little things die or if they're just incapable of getting back together. I don't know.
Mm-hmm. So then later, as they wash ashore and dry off with the sun, they reform.
Yeah.
It's going to be Megamorphs too.
But then Cassie sings some stupid whale song about hope at the end.
Yeah, ugh. God.
Which, like, they all, like we mentioned at the beginning of this episode, they all, like, Cassie especially feels like complete and utter, like, elation and relief that this problem has been solved. Like, this was a huge turning point in the history of the Animorphs, but, like, it wasn't.
Right. It's like, if you look at this from like a continuity of the series perspective, like, at the beginning of this book, everything is exactly the same as the end of this book.
Yes.
Because at the beginning of this book, we had no idea that this Valik thing existed. It was literally just a problem for this book. And every other one, it's like, it feels like they're making some sort of progress, or that the Yeerks are making some sort of progress. Like, it, as much as it is a long-running series where you're supposed to be able to read each book independently, like, there is still an overall thrust of the book, or of the series. But this one was just so, like, outside of it all.
And I just wanted to be like, Cassie, this isn't the first bad guy you've killed.
Right.
You killed a police officer controller in the very first book.
Yeah. And
okay, though.
Like, you guys destroyed the whole Kandrona thing, like, literally 5 minutes ago. So,
yeah.
I don't know. You rescued Axe. That was, like, a big thing.
Yeah. This is, like, not time to rest on your laurels,
right.
Cassie.
I don't know. Just, it seemed very, very pointless in the overall series.
Yeah. There wasn't a lot of substance to this one. It was an entertaining read, if not a little repetitive.
Yeah. You know what I was thinking, though, when I was reading this, what I would really like to see with this book?
What's that?
So you talked about, like, how there is a TV adaptation of this series, and we've talked about, wouldn't it be cool if there was a movie? I don't know if we talked about that super much on the podcast, or, like, a new TV adaptation, but with this book, or specifically this book, and maybe this has been done because I'm not a huge gamer, but I would really like to see a game from Rachel's perspective, specifically after she has amnesia.
What kind of game? Like a adventure game, or
like a? I'm thinking kind of what's that one horror game that I played that one time?
Until Dawn.
Yeah, like kind of like Until Dawn, but like with the idea of like she doesn't know anything about the Animorphs, but she is an Animorph, and you have to like figure it out and figure out your like morphing powers. Because like just the idea of the Animorphs in general, I think would make a very good like RPG because of like all of the fun acquiring animals and like. And because there are no limits, like you could, acquire as many animals as you can find.
A tactics game.
Yeah.
But
I think that the plot of you, the viewpoint you playing as Rachel, the viewpoint character, not knowing who these people are or like who you are, and like I'm sure that like conceit of someone with amnesia has been done. But I
hold on. Let's go ahead and like get a patent on this idea to make a non-affiliated game.
But yeah, I think that would be really cool to have like a game where you are an Animorph who does not know they are an Animorph, and like all of the mystery and stuff, like the figuring out the Yeerks and whatever. Because like, think how cool this book would be if it was just Rachel's perspective, and also we hadn't read any other Animorphs books.
Yeah, if this was the first book in the series, a new series.
Yeah, it'd be fun.
I'd love that. Yeah, it was written by Kelly Armstrong. K.A. Applegate. It's Kelly Armstrong all along.
What?
I don't know. I just like a book about shifters. I feel like it should be written by Kelly Armstrong.
No one else is allowed to write.
No one else writes urban fantasy. It's only Kelly Armstrong.
Oh, man. Yeah. But yeah, that was this book.
Yeah. I don't know. Do you have a most valuable morph for this book? Or?
I don't know. I guess Rachel put up with the most shit. I think Cassie probably is technically... Well, no. I feel like all of them but Jake really did pull their weight this week.
Yeah. Well, and even Jake had that, like, tiger moment where he leaped out of the tree to save...
no one cares.
Someone. I don't remember.
Wasn't important.
Was it Elizabeth? Rachel and
he was doing he was doing the same amount as everybody else at that point, because they were all doing the morph to distract the thing situation. I think you could make the case for Axe, because he came up with a lot of strategy while on board the ship.
Axe went through the most.
I think you could make the case for Cassie, because she came up with the plan at the end. I think you could make the case for Rachel, because she had to put up with the most shit because she was at the biggest disadvantage. Tobias is a solid player, but I don't think he really had any standout moments this time.
He slept through most of
Yes,
this.
he did.
I forgot to mention.
He felt very bad about it.
Yes, he slept through the whole, like, nighttime joyride.
Yeah.
With Cassie's dad's pickup truck. They didn't even think to mention him. Like,
well, they said at the beginning that he only had, like, an hour of, like, light left that he could see by, because he's a hawk, so he can only see during, like, daytime.
Yeah.
And I like that, actually, from a shipping perspective. If I was writing a fanfic based on this book, that would be, like, a big thing of, like, he feels so guilty that he wasn't out there helping to find Rachel and whatever.
Oh, yeah. Dude, that angst.
Very good angst. But, yeah, he was solid when he was there, but he didn't do anything to really stand out. And I think Marco is the same way. He was solid when he was there, but he didn't do any really standout moments. So Cassie, Axe, and Rachel, I think, were the top three.
Marco did open the hatch.
He did, but that was all part of Axe's plan that Axe explained to him how to do.
I guess I'll say Cassie because she did the most morphs at once.
That's true.
Of all time forever.
Yeah.
So, okay, do you have any serious theories coming from this book, since it's kind of detached from the rest of the series?
Oh, not really. Yeah, that's the thing. I don't really, because it is very unconnected to everything else.
Yeah.
I mean,
I guess my theory is that there will be some vague mentions of this in the next book.
Yeah. And I'll be like, hey, remember that cool whale thing
we fought?
There's still the possibility that
we'll
whales are gods. That seems to be continuing in this book. Yeah, but besides that, not really too much. I'm hoping that this is kind of like a serious theory in terms of, like, I'm worried about it. I'm hoping they don't introduce more aliens from our solar system, because that will annoy me.
Yeah,
but I feel
that
like
wasn't good.
that this has opened the door for that. And
there's going to be a whole ecosystem on Saturn.
Nah, it's going to be Mars or some shit. They're going to be like, oh, this alien from Mars showed up.
Be on Uranus. Got him.
Morbid moment? You got one?
I don't know. I guess, like, Axe's whole thing on Visser 3's ship was kind of morbid, just, like, being faced with his brother's killer and the Yeerk that they're actively trying to fight against, and he's in the body of one of his own people, and Visser 3 is, like, really good at playing these mind games, and I don't know. I can see how that would be very distressing. I don't really think there was a lot of morbidity, though, in this one.
Yeah. This one was pretty tame. I think for me, probably the lady in the cabin had some
I forgot
some
about that shit.
Unfortunate implications. They talk about how, like, she talks about how she was forced to turn over her family to the Yeerks, so that's pretty messed up. But
yes, do you think that was Melissa's mom, like Mrs. Chapman?
I think almost certainly no.
Dang.
Because I think first off she mentions kids plural, and Melissa's an only child as far as I know. And I also think it would have come up if Mrs. Chapman worked at the Gap.
That's where Mr. Chapman got the idea from.
Yep. Yeah, so that's
it then.
Pretty much it.
That's this book.
For this book. Next fortnight we got one more, guys. One more until relaunch.
For this batch.
I know we've been getting a lot of positive feedback, and I promise you guys the Animorphs will continue.
The Animorphs will return.
The Animorphs will return on this podcast. But next fortnight we're reading back to the main series, Animorphs number 8, which is the alien, which is Axe point of view all the way through. I was kind of bummed actually that we got the Axe point of view in this book, because I was like, oh, it's sad that like his intro wasn't his own book, you know?
Yeah.
But I don't think this book would have worked without it, so necessary.
Very true.
But yeah.
I'd also like to point out, I'm looking at it on Goodreads, and someone has put this book on a list called YA Immigrant Experience, and I don't think this applies.
I mean, I guess Axe is
Oh yes, the great Andalite diaspora.
I'm trying to think.
Do you say diaspora or diaspora? Because isn't it pronounced multiple ways? Did I just make that?
I don't know. I pronounce it diaspora, but we also pronounce it like, what's the other thing that I always notice when one of us says it? What is it? Anyway, doesn't matter. I'll remember it at one point when I'm editing something.
Okay, well, everything is saying it's pronounced diaspora, so let me take that again. So, the great Andalite diaspora.
Oh, presumably versus assumably. You always say assumably, and I always say presumably, and they're both fine. But I always notice that we both neither like.
Do you really? That's too funny.
Yeah.
I could have sworn it was pronounced both ways, though, but I don't know.
I don't know,
man. I haven't had to know that word since college in my Asian American lit class. It's fine.
Anyway, Alien, next fortnight. Come check it out.
Yes, I'm very excited to read about this. I hear it's a pretty good book based on the reviews I glanced at.
I'm trying to stay off of the internet in relation to this, because...
The Animorphs fandom.
Yeah, because there definitely are spoilers out there.
Oh, yeah, the wiki is, like, rife with spoilers. You gotta be real careful.
Even, like, reading the names of some of the future books or, like, seeing the pictures, I'm like, ooh, shoot, that definitely spoiled some shit. So, you gotta be careful. In the meantime, if you want to tweet at us about Animorphs, you can do that on Twitter by tweeting at us at HateReadcast. On Twitter. If you want to email us about Animorphs, or if you have a book pick for our relaunch, or if you just want to like say hey, you can email us at haterecast@gmail.com.
As always, thank you to Ben Cope for the use of our theme song. You can check out his YouTube channel in our show notes below. And we are also on all of your favorite podcast aggregating platforms. So if you haven't followed or subscribed to us on one of those, you definitely should, especially if you want to keep up to date with our big transition into our relaunch, because we will be changing our name, but the RSS feed won't change.
Yeah.
So make sure you are subscribed so you don't lose us in the internet.
We also have an Instagram if you guys want to go look at that, but it's not super active.
It's not doing anything right now, but you can subscribe to it for future reference. And we also have a website, but I think we're going to get a new website when we relaunch, so don't even worry about that, guys. Man. If you use Apple Podcasts, we'd really appreciate it if you could give us a 5-star review. But if you don't use Apple Podcasts, feel free. You can still review us on whatever things except podcast reviews. And you can also tell your friends, you can lean close and whisper into their ear about the goodness of HateRead. But, you know, when we relaunch, you'll have to re-whisper to them about our new name.
In the words of K.A. Applegate, I had already checked out the gym where Rachel did gymnastics, and the frozen yogurt place where she always ordered key lime pie flavor. Rachel is a monster. Rachel, that is not good. What are you doing? Rachel?
Also, in the words of K.A. Applegate, and while I am on Earth, I have taken Jake for my prince.
So in love.
Oh man, they just don't realize it.
Just one day.
This is going to be a little bit of a tangent, especially if you don't listen to our other podcast, 12 Months of Christmas.
Which most
but
of you
I
don't.
did,
We've
like,
seen the numbers.
Yes. After we talked about the figure skating movie, I did go back and rewatch Yuri on Ice, and I forgot how fucking good it was.
It's so good.
Yuri on Ice is fantastic. If you're going to choose an anime, there's no beach episode in that. It just made me think of anime, and that was like the most recent anime I'd watched. Do yourselves a favor, go watch Yuri on Ice. You can cut this in if you want.
I'll probably leave it in. Or we'll put it at the end.
It's a very good anime. But yeah,